Everybody, welcome to 599. T.R. DeYoung's down in SoCal saying it's rainy down there. Joe Holtzman up in Estes, Colorado. Greg Phillips in Australia, as is Alistair Murray and a bunch of others down there. John Emmett in Italy. Alan Long. Hi, Alan. Bob Walker. Many people on here already. Welcome. Bob's in a sunny day in North Texas. Let's get this one off the dock.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Live from Studio B, and Julia's back.
Yay.
Bravo! Hooray! She's back after her extended COVID leave.
Can't tell you how good it is.
Are you in good shape?
Of course.
You're not communicative anymore.
No.
You're not going to give it to me here across the studio today.
Absolutely not.
I don't think so either. It's been it's been almost, 3 weeks?
Longer.
Well, tomorrow will be Saturday. You tested positive on, right?
Yeah.
Look at all the thumbs up and the hearts. Everybody's happy that Julia's back. Welcome to show 599. Next Tuesday will be 600. We're not sure what we're going to do for that. If anything, it's just a number, right?
I know, but it's got to have some special thing.
And you're happy to be back. You don't know how happy I am to have you back. Let's get into this one and get into the pre-start. The Kohamarama Yacht Club we're featuring down in Auckland, this cool junior sailing club, youth yacht club dedicated to introducing young people to sailing. We talked about them in previous shows, and training that they do for kids, training them to love and excel at our beloved sport. Really cool stuff. Not so cool is that we are going this Sunday on to daylight time. I wish the hell we'd either go on daylight time or stay on standard time, but there are bills now being reintroduced in Congress. Maybe sooner or later we will stick with one or the other and then let the states decide if they like Arizona and Hawaii and Indiana do their own thing, at least in part. But for all of you who are watching live and want to know what's the hell's happening next Tuesday, the 14th of March, we will be on daylight time. We will still go to air at 1300 local time, 1300 Pacific daylight, which is an hour earlier now around the world. It's an hour earlier in Europe until you go on daylight time in Europe in a few weeks. And it's an hour earlier in Sydney and in Auckland the next morning, of course, as you all know. So this is our last show on daylight, on standard time here in the U.S. And then we'll get an hour earlier for all of you next Tuesday until you go on and off your respective summer times or daylight times. Julia, do you know what was celebrated on Wednesday this week and why I have this slide in?
It was a women's something or other.
International Women's Day.
Uh-huh.
And I looked this, you can see where this is from in honor of Ratty. I thought we should put the Cruising Yacht Club. I looked for videos. Normally World Sailing puts out a video, US Sailing puts out a video. No, I didn't see anything. Maybe Sail GP didn't put out a video. But the clubs did, and at least two of them did. And this is the Cruising Yacht Club, who had actually on the 7th, they had a breakfast. I guess that's their tradition. They had Nina Curtis, Felicity Nelson, Rachel Williams, who apparently are celebrities, at their annual breakfast, emceed by CYCA director Jackie. I don't know if it's Sapir or Sapir, but she is the one, I believe, on the left in the blazer and the folderol. And apparently a very sharp gal, all four of them. The three panelists shared excellent insight into their journeys in sailing and how we can contribute to creating a more equal society. And apparently their goal is to get it up to 30% of the action, the activity at CYCA women. So bravo Zulu to them. And then here at St. Francis, they did a nice thing. They featured the women. We have a lot of women here in the leadership at the club, Julia.
Yes.
Of course, we have a Commodore here at the Beach Street Yacht Club.
Yes.
Who's a woman.
Oh, yeah, really?
Who would that be?
I can't imagine.
Commodore Julia Vatican. St. Francis, though, put on their Facebook page and on their webpage a round of applause for the women who lead our humble club. Our guests today are members there. That is Katie and Ratty, as well as Julia, of course, longtime member, and they let me in now. Among our board of directors and appointed officers, we have Assistant Secretary Betsy Weiler, Director Aaron O'Grady, Director Susan Rooney, who's been running the Big Boat series and running it well for 6, 7, 8 years now. She's been doing it. Director Kim Meek and Assistant General Counsel, the lawyerly types like Katie. Katie's also a lawyer. Sharon, I don't know if it's Phrase,
I think.
Phrase. We could not do what we do without these amazing ladies. So says St. Francis Yacht Club on Wednesday on International Women's Day. So we celebrate that with you today belatedly. But wait, there's more. One sailing federation that did put out a video, and a very cool one, is presided over by our Fozy, Alistair Murray. And here is Sailing Australia's, his International Women's Day video. Very cool.
We recognise that the current statistics show that only 30% of sailors are female and 70% male. Our goal, and it's reflected and covered in our strategic plan, gets us to 50-50 by 2032. And it's a very major opportunity for sailing. One of the greatest benefits of gender equity is that we just have more sailors. Personally, I'm a father of 3 girls. I've sailed with my wife. I've sailed with each of my daughters over the journey. And one of them in particular has really stuck with it, and she actually worked for Australian Sailing. It's just a fantastic sport for girls as well as boys, and I'd like to see more girls involved.
Yes, I've been really blessed to be sailing with a lot of different amazing female athletes, namely my cousin and powerhouse crew Lisa on the NACA 17 for the last probably 10 years or more now. And also in our Sail GP now we have amazing female athletes who we compete with, and it's been really eye-opening on what they bring to our team and how they help us improve each day. Yeah, sailing is really special in the sense that we do have a lot of mixed gender classes and opportunities in our sports. So we have the dinghy sailing, the Olympics mixed gender. In Sail GP we have mixed gender, and offshore sailing we have mixed gender, and all which I've been blessed to be a part of. So it's really cool that in our sport it's been really good movement in the last decade.
So bravo Zulu again to Australian Sailing, to our Fozy, Alistair Murray, who's been on the show I don't know how many times now. And I have an AAAA.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, Alistair's awesome Aussie anecdote.
Oh,
and I think we now have 2, maybe 3 in the can. I just didn't have time in today's show to put the one in, but he's got a great one from the JJ that's going on down there in Sydney Harbour. Maybe get ready to update us on that as well. Julia, you're getting lots of comments here from people like my beloved mother, Janice Davis.
Right.
Saying, hi, Julia.
Yes.
She's very pleased to see that you're on back in the pink of health. Is that the right expression?
Yeah.
Pink of health?
Sure. Graham
Sweeney's in Snowy Yell, Scotland, as we look through the comments. Stingray, give your finger to, not a finger, but give your wag of the finger to Stingray's International Tranny Day next.
No,
Come on, Stingray.
I already did. You just didn't see it.
You did? What a crouton.
Yeah.
Nelson Bay, there's a nice place in the world. Nelson Bay, Pedro Foiling Sailor, a.k.a. Peter Stevenson, is there, sailing ILCA National Masters in Oz. Peter Taylor in New York saying, welcome back to Julia. We're all delighted, no one more so than I,
me,
that Julia is back. Yeah, you figure out your own time zone, South America. Andrew Pindar.
Yay.
Nice to have Andrew on again. He's been moving around the world almost as much as John Emmett has. Wakanda? Wakanda? What's that mean? Wakanda forever.
That's a movie.
Is it?
A very
James Bland down in Austin, Texas is talking about. Clark Chapin, yes, thank you. Like, share, subscribe, whatever is correct. Julia is saying thanks. We missed you all. Ricardo Lobato is on. Hello, Ricardo. And I know people are teeing up their questions for our guests today. They are 2 super sailors. We often get super sailors on here, but not 2 at the same time. So Mary Jude Szymanski in Philly is on. Pindar saying the snow is pounding down at last. The Swiss Alps, typical as we start our journey home tomorrow. Gordon Smith is in Denmark. Dark and chilly here in Denmark. What time is it? CET. It's UTC London. Barcelona's 22:10, so it's 10 after 10 at night in Central Europe. Let's carry on here because we've got a terrific show, and we're going to start with a little Fosey focus. Speaking of all these Fosies and the snow, because there's snow all over the place apparently. Our little cool people segment as Julie Ahrens signs on. Glad you were back, Julia. Julie Ahrens is saying in Cleveland. Now this is a slide courtesy of Christopher Lacey, who's also a Fosey, been on the show any number of times. Look at the number of inches of snow expected yesterday and today, and over the next 7 days in the Sierra Mountains to the east of us here in the Bay Area, including up in, some of you will know, Incline Village, Lake Tahoe, Truckee, Tahoe City, so on. But as much as 94 inches
Yes.
in Kingvale. It's unbelievable. That's 8 feet of snow, Julia.
Yes, I know. It's
What do you think of
incredible.
that?
I don't know, and neither do they. All the long timers.
But it's not just here. I don't know what's going on, but we're getting a lot of snow. This is a shot from one of our Fosey up in Tahoe, and that's from a few days ago. It's gotten worse since then.
Yeah.
This is on the border, of course, of California and Nevada.
They get worried about their roofs.
Well, exactly. So look at this. This is our friend David Santori and his wife Valerie. I don't know if they've ever been on the show, but there is Valerie. David's not doing this. He sent Valerie out to clear off the roof on their home up in Tahoe. Bloody hell. So that's Val. She used to run the junior program at Golden Gate Yacht Club, did a terrific job. David was rear commodore when I was the vice there for years. Longtime friends, good people. And then this, coincidentally, I didn't put out an all call for snowy videos, but look at this. You know where that is? We just had that comment from Yell, from Graham Sweeney up in Scotland. He sent this beautiful video. He's quite a videographer. He said this was yesterday. He said day 4 of our snowy adventure, still snowed in, but we have all we need.
Oh, lovely.
It's fabulous.
Yes.
Yes, our driveway is under several feet of snow. We could clear it, but we have nowhere to go. Food stores are good for several months, have enough powdered milk, for example, to last a year.
Oh, good.
Looking forward to Fridays to today's show. Graham Sweeney, who's on here. He is maybe my favorite Fosey. Look at the character in that face.
I know. I was going to say, yes. His hair and makeup is terrific.
I don't think it's either hair or makeup. Thanks, Graham Sweeney, for that. But wait, again, there's more. Look at this. This came in yesterday, and from a Fosey, and I thought, oh my God, they've gotten in a horrific car accident. And that, of course, is an Aussie. That's Mark Husted up in Sweden. Mark, who's almost always on here in replay, he sent that along. When I first saw it, I thought, oh my God, I hope he's okay. And he was just joking. It's
Yes.
typical. I'm sure Ratty wouldn't do that to us.
Oh,
Send
yes,
a
he
joke
would.
like that. We'll get to Katie and Ratty in a sec. They're standing patiently by up in Sacramento. That wraps up our Fosey Focus for today. Coming in from different corners of the world, our cool people for whom we do the show. We love the Fosey and everybody else who watches. Do you know, Julia,
Yes.
what day it is today? Here's your first clue.
Bagpipes.
What bagpipes? You know that song?
No.
I wouldn't let Julia or Katie or Ratty see this in the text here. That is the song I am saying. It's called Sailing. I am sailing, I am sailing.
Home again across the sea.
Yep. To be near you, to be free. Do you know who wrote that song?
No.
See, Graham Sweeney sang Rod Stewart. Now, people think Rod Stewart wrote the song. He did not. We Are Sailing. It was written by the Sutherland brothers, who are from Scotland. They recorded it back in the 70s. And then Rod Stewart grabbed it and popularized it on his Across the Atlantic album. Rod Stewart.
You need that suit.
I don't need that suit. That looks like a futon. It was recorded by Rod Stewart for his first album in North America rather than Great Britain, Atlantic Crossing. That's what it was called, which was recorded in April through June of 75, yada, yada. Sailing, down the last sentence, remains Stewart's biggest single hit in the UK. Who would have known? However, Sailing was not a hit in Stewart's newly adopted U.S. homeland. I didn't know. So what day is today? Is it Rod Stewart Day? Is it Sailing Day? No, you were right, Julia. It's International Bagpipe Day. My audio was down there a little bit. International Bagpipe Day is celebrated every year on the 10th of March for reasons that escape me. And you may have seen in the show notes, I said, is it Banjo Day? Is it Accordion Day? No, it's Bagpipe Day.
It's an acquired taste.
I can say that as a banjo player. The sound of bagpipes filling the air as day dawns is enough to bring joy to the hearts of many, including the late great Queen, Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth, had a piper every morning.
Mm-hmm.
Julia, you should have a piper every morning here at the Beach Street Yacht Club.
Well,
We could hear the whole night. You'd wake the whole bloody neighborhood
oh, yes,
up.
it'd be great.
Others, they may not feel quite the same. It seems that one either loves the pipes or not at all. There is not very much middle ground. International Bagpipe Day is the time to find out where you stand and join those who love them or not. I like the pipes at a funeral. At a funeral when they play Amazing Grace. Pretty good. Or,
yeah. In place, en place, as they say.
En place, using French. Been back for one show, not even 17 minutes that you're back, and you're being French.
I'm sorry.
Lots of comments here. Life begins again with Julia back. Everybody's saying welcome, Julia, back. Steve Gruber, Thistles and Lightnings and Sniper, 3 top mixed gender classes in North America. We're going to ask Katie to talk about mixed gender sailing, which we all did growing up, right?
Of course.
I didn't think it was such a strange thing.
Great
Great job, Alistair. Alan Long is saying, yes, that was Alistair. That was a terrific video. And that's like 3 or 4 that they put out now that have been really good. I think U.S. Sailing needs their PR manager.
Yes.
Sorry, Julie, you were saying?
I was going to say, all of his videos have been good.
Well, let's don't get carried away.
So far.
Real Snow, Alan Long is saying, your water order has arrived. Where would you like us to put it? I don't know what that means. Yeah, that's right. I guess he's talking about the snow. We're finally going to have water again in California, right? And down in Arizona, wherever the Colorado River goes. Let's carry on here and get to this U.S. sailing segment so we can get to Katie Bone and Ratty, our esteemed guests today. The starting line, still using that beautiful shot of the Dragon Gold Cup from a few years ago at the Royal Hollandia up there in Medemblik in the Netherlands. John Emmett checking in, our international man of mystery. Do you know where he is now? No. He was in Thailand.
Yeah.
He was back at his mother's farm, his family farm. Then he was in Weymouth at his place. Now, well, watch the video.
Hi, Tom, Julia, and all the Fozy. You join me on the beach. I'm sure you can hear the waves in the background.
We can see the waves too.
Sunny Andorra in Italy. If you haven't done already, please subscribe to the YouTube channel and remember to follow the Facebook page so you can get more of the bi-weekly reports. Today, more than doing a report, I'm just going to talk to you about failure. In fact, I should say fear of failure, because it's fear of failure which is something that is often a huge barrier to success, and it prevents people from trying new things. After all, you need to see what the most successful people are doing, and if that's different to yourself, why not give it a try? But failure somehow has become a bad word, and actually failure is very much part of success. Maybe you have to fail many times to improve. So my top tip for today is to reframe the word. So just as I don't tend to use the word capsize at the jibe mark, I encourage people to be quick across the boat. Okay, be quick across the boat. That's the thought you want in your head. If you say don't capsize, you've already put that word capsize in your head, so you don't want that. So failure, I'm going to talk about attempts. So it may take you 10 attempts to get a good start, or it may take you 10 attempts to get really good boat speed downwind. You may have to do things many times to improve. But rather than talking about failures, because failures are just a stepping stone to success, we're going to be talking about attempts. And that's why it's really important to do lots of events, lots of training, because it may take you 10 attempts to win the World Championships, or it may take you 10 attempts just to win your club race. But it's by keeping on going, and it's that mental resilience, which is achieved through adversity, that you're going to get your success. So I'll try and join you at the show. Time difference is not my friend at the moment, but I want you guys to really think, and girls, just to be neutral, how you're going to make 2023 the best season yet, because change and even chaos is an opportunity. See you soon.
Now, I think that was a very clever comment about
Yes.
U.S. sailing. Even chaos, change and chaos is an opportunity.
Yes.
Now, I did not know there was an Andorra, Italy. Probably those of you who are more worldly than I know that. I know Andorra, the principality, the country.
Yes.
But Andorra, Italy is on the Italian Riviera between Nice and Genoa. John flew into Nice, he said, and then drove along the coast past San Remo and so on, where Yacht Club Italiano has a station. And they are there in Andorra, the city, not the principality, for the ILCA Senior European Championship. So he's gone from, halfway around the world with a quick stop at home, as you saw on the videos, last week. And bravo Zulu to him. The regatta starts today. They were measuring. Tomorrow, I think, is the practice race, and then they get into it on Sunday here in Europe. Now, I asked John where they are, and you could see he was west-facing. So he shot that video today over here, he tells me, on this beach, and that's west, that obviously, north. And then they're launching here on this, and he says it's a fabulous place to run a regatta. And the lasers will be launching in here and sailing out and racing, I guess. And he said it was pretty lumpy, pretty rough today anyway. And he's got somebody's hotshot laser that was maybe a medalist, a lady who was a medalist. I think her name, Mama Mia or something is the name of her boat. Can't remember now, John. So that's the Marina Andorra Regatta headquarters in the harbor, John says. And that report, of course, the coach's corner from John Emmett. Smooth as, somebody said, smooth as a baby's behind. That's what James Bland said. Baby's bum behind.
Yeah. That's a great area of the world, too. I spent 3 summers there.
Where? On the Italian Riviera?
It's
Julie,
French.
where haven't you spent 3 summers?
Well, lots of places.
You've
I'm
been everywhere
working
for
on it.
3 summers. I think your whole life
Why not the whole
has
summer?
been a bunch of summers.
Well,
Huh?
it's
You're,
like,
you're leaning over to the right. I keep trying to get Julie to center up in her shot. We're going to have to go look and be sure Katie and David are centered. They're looking pretty good.
yeah, they're doing great.
They're doing great. Okay, that's Emmett's segment. Thank you, John. He's always saying please share to your own Facebook and YouTube channels if you're so inclined, which we appreciate very much. Now, the continuing saga at U.S. Sailing and their U.S. Sailing team, which is the moniker for their Olympic program. We told you there was another shoe to drop. Well, again, we hear these things and we're told not to say anything, but it's now semi-public because we'll tell you in a moment. But before the news of the U.S. Sailing Foundation resignation, which I had on my Facebook page last night, U.S. Sailing President Rich Jepson, who I'm sure has a heart of gold. He's a nice guy. He's a sailor. Runs a sailing school over in the East Bay, here in the Bay Area, for, 30 years. Is a member of St. Francis, Julia. But he's not a big racer. He does some racing, but he's in the hot seat now. And he did an interview with Scuttlebutt a couple days ago. And I'm just going to read the first paragraph and the last paragraph and let you all go back and read the whole thing if you haven't seen it already and make your own judgment. The opening paragraph was regarding the current situation. The Scuttlebutt editor supposedly asked him. He may have written this whole thing, I don't know. How did we get here? Well, over the past 2 years, things have been brought to the surface regarding a variety of operational performance and other issues. That is a word salad, Julia.
You bet.
And without getting into too many specifics, as doing so, it just wouldn't be respectful or appropriate. Huh?
Yes.
These were issues in a variety of areas. Okay. Okay.
The next follow-on is...
The next follow-on, given that our primary objective is providing the best support and development opportunities for athletes, the issues most concerning were raised by the athletes themselves, which we all know is not We know some of that is true, but strictly speaking, it was raised by a lot of people. I'm now going to go jump to the end of this. I'm sorry to say, but it was, I don't know who drafted these responses for him. Maybe he did himself. But what now for the U.S. Olympic program? The president says we're working on multiple fronts with Henry Brower and Sarah Lehan, who are two terrific people. I've known them both for years. Not well, but I know them. Sarah is Tom's daughter, actually, Tom Lehan's daughter, for those of you who know Tom. With those two, we put the two best possible interim leaders in place. These are members of the U.S. Sailing Board, by the way, working as volunteers, putting in 60 hours a week each. Both of them are extraordinarily smart and extraordinarily well-versed to lead the team while we conduct a search for two to replace Paul, two really critical positions. One that we hoped to get filled until Paul left. I'm not sure what that meant. One that we hoped to get filled until, I think they meant before, Paul left. The other, of course, replacement for Paul. And just to remind you, they decided to do this reorg, ran it past Kayard. Kayard didn't like the idea. He said, look, you signed me up to do both the fundraising and to oversee the operation of the team. And now you want me to just do the fundraising, which, by the way, you've done a really good job of it. He and the chairman of the foundation, whom we'll tell you more about in a moment, raised something like $18 million in cash and commitments. Mm-hmm. There's the key. It's not all cash. It's cash and commitments. So Kayard said, no way. I don't want that job of just being the fundraiser, and I am out of here. So as you all know, he stepped down a week or more than now. Yeah. So they're finding two people to replace Paul, supposedly, according to the president. One role is to lead the high-performance side, and the other is an Olympic-focused gift officer, development director, a fundraiser, to work in the development department of U.S. Sailing, not of the Olympic Committee, the development department of U.S. Sailing. They're trying to keep all, as we told you in the previous shows, keep that all under the U.S. Sailing roof, for better or worse. Who is solely, this gift officer, who is solely focused on raising money for the Olympics. That's the near-term plan.
There's a reason. If you are a development officer forever, that's not nearly as interesting or as much fun or as productive as working with the other side.
Well,
too.
Exactly. Do you know how many development directors, development officers they've been through in the last 5 or 6 years?
Every 6 months.
Not quite. It's not quite that bad. Okay, so that was this article interview in Scuttlebutt a couple days ago. There was one last paragraph, unfortunately. Instead of ending it there and saying, here's what we're going to do, we're going to support our athletes, he then finishes with this paragraph. We're going to get through what is an extraordinarily difficult situation. By the way, for the third time, Malcolm Page, Greg Fisher, and now Paul Kayard over the last 5 years, whatever it's been. We're going to get through this extraordinarily difficult situation yet again, he could have said. We hope fervently that Paul would see value in the new plan and find excitement and enthusiasm in doing what he was so good at. Implicit is that he wasn't good at the other thing, and maybe he wasn't. Maybe Katie wants to comment, I don't know. Because people usually do that. They love doing stuff they're good at. But alas, that wasn't the case, and Paul left. So you tell me, Julia, why does the guy write this thing and then end it on a down? It's Debbie Downer, and he basically takes a dump on Paul. Yeah. When it's if that's behind us now, look forward, be positive and optimistic. Instead, he's got to conclude this thing. And whether Paul's not perfect, none of us is, least of all me. And I've been to war with Paul 3 times, in the America's Cup, and Katie's been to war with him. We'll ask her, doing the round the world race with him on EF. So. We know his strengths and weaknesses. Everybody knows mine, and I've got a lot of weaknesses. But as we said a week ago on this show, as I learned from Malin Burnham and Dennis Conner, you hire people for their strengths and then manage, Julia,
their weaknesses.
You manage their weakness. You're an old headhunter. Well, you're a young headhunter, but what I mean.
Getting older.
Huh? Right? Isn't it? You hire people for their strengths.
Right. And for their need at that moment in that organization.
Exactly. Okay, so Rich, I don't know Rich well. He's always been very pleasant to me, very nice. I wish him the best. Sadly, I think he's got even more problems because I heard yesterday And I told you another shoe was going to drop, and indeed it has. And I put this out on my Facebook page last night. I said, it gets worse. Now the U.S. Sailing Foundation board chair, and the foundation is responsible. So it's a 501c3. It's a charitable nonprofit in this country. We call it a 501c3. And the money going into that, if somebody like Julie, who's affluent, makes a donation, she gets a tax write-off, right? You get to deduct the amount of your donation from your income, from the, not from your taxes, but from the income, your taxable income.
Yeah.
So this is an important guy and an important body, and it's been around for a long time. It was previously called USIS, the U.S. International Sailing Association, now USSF. And I don't know Bill Rue well, San Diego, very good sailor, good racer. And he, with Paul, are the ones that have raised this $18 million in cash and commitments. Now, here's the key thing. It's commitments and cash. It's not $18 million cash. It's not in the bank. $18 million in cash and commitments. We'll see if all those commitments get fulfilled now after Bill stepped down. He resigned at a meeting day before yesterday. And there's been no announcement, unless something's gone out while we've been on the air here. But his name and photo last night were unceremoniously removed from the U.S. Sailing website. I went on to look. Before I posted it on Facebook, sure enough, it was erased. His picture, his name, it was gone. And he was also, I think, on the U.S. Sailing Board, not just the Foundation Board. An emergency meeting of the USSF has been called, I hear, next Monday. More on the show today. That's about all I'm going to say. And apologies to Tom Whidden, who, when I did that graphic last night on my Facebook page, the lower third covered up his name. But the esteemed Tom Whidden is also on that board, along with these ladies and gentlemen. And they're all senior, serious people in our sport in this country. Brian Keene is the vice chair. You can see that Mr. Bill Rue's name no longer is on the list. This is just a screen grab from the website. Glennie Darden from Texas, another successful business guy, terrific sailor. Johnny Lovell from Southern Yacht Club, New Orleans, another guy who's a terrific sailor and business person. Rich Jepson himself, the president of U.S. Sailing. Bill Koch, who gave a lot of money already, or at least committed a lot of money to the Olympic program. Linda Lindquist, who, again, Katie has sailed with. I've known Linda forever, and she's a terrific, smart business lady and sailor. Alan Ostfield, the non-sailing CEO of U.S. Sailing, is even on this board for reasons that escape me. Corey Sertle, another terrific sailor, past president of U.S. Sailing. Doug Smith, a good sailor here from St. Francis Yacht Club, and a lawyer. And, of course, the aforementioned Tom Whidden, Mr. North Sails himself. So that board has got to find somebody to lead it. And they've got to secure these commitments and donations because, after all, our sailors, I feel so badly for them that they've had, once again, they've had the rug pulled out from under them with 2 years to go to the Olympics. It's just unfortunate and unfair. Bill Rue has quit as the U.S. Sailing Foundation chair. As I said, he's a good sailor. He co-owns an IC-37, races in the New York Yacht Club circuit, and otherwise lives down in San Diego. A boat called Pacific Yankee. It's an IC-37 co-owned by Bill, Mr. Rue, and Drew Freitas, who's another good sailor. And both donors. I mean, Bill and his wife have given a lot of money to our Olympic program, apparently. Okay, enough of all. That's the latest news. We'll go check the comments. I really don't want to go into it because I want to get to Katie and Ratty, who are way more important than this stuff. And it's just another sad, as we told you, there was another shoe to drop, and sure enough it is. 18 months, yeah, Gordon Smith, exactly. It's not 2 years, it's a year and a half. Less than 18 months, John Emmett is saying, thank you. What else here? Replying to Gordon Smith, no troubles here, but maybe the global, I don't know what they're talking about. Yeah, my audio was down for a bit, but I think it's back up. I had it potted down just a slight. Donations directly from a 401k to the USSF account count toward your, okay, Clark's getting technical about your taxes here in the country. The BS stops when the flag drops, James Frederick Bland is saying. Taraza Davis, there's a new name. Welcome, Taraza. I'm going to read her comment. Did you all know there was an open Olympic COO program management role that Paul never failed to help Paul so he could stay focused on fundraising strengths. A shame, as that could have made the difference, perhaps.
That is
Yeah,
interesting.
and we said, Julia, we said on this show that, I mean, as I said, I've been to war, America's Cup war with Paul 3 times.
Right.
And I know his strengths and weaknesses, and I'd like to think I know mine. And remember, Paul, when we did the 2000 campaign, who'd we have running this as COO? The late, great Bob Billingham at Buddha. And Ratty and Katie will tell you others that have been his deputy, his COOs, when they did big boat campaigns, round the world campaigns, and so on. So we'll get into that. Yeah, everybody needs to be well organized, and I think Paul was hoping that COO was going to come from him. And I have not talked to Paul. I've texted with him, but he's sailing in the Bacardi Cup down in Miami. So I haven't been on the phone with him and talked to him since this whole thing broke. Speaking of broke, let's carry on. Less than 66 months to 2028. Good point, Steve Gruber. That's perhaps even more important. Will America be ready? Alan Long is asking. Pacific Yankee, Bill Rue, sorry to see him go, but hopefully U.S. Sailing will sort this out. And I'm going to do everything I can do to help support our Olympic athletes who are in the pipeline, whether they're your frontliners or whether they're down the road for 2028, see what we can do to help them. If any of, as I said on the 2 previous shows, any of you who is a prospective Olympian this time or next wants to come on the show and give a pitch to our audience, we've done it before, right, Julia?
Right.
Give a pitch for what you can do, what they can do to help you, whether you're up in Minnesota, you're down in Florida. Yeah. We've done that.
For each time, you just wonder how they can live through that, because they have to do 3 or 4 things, jobs themselves.
Hugely. Well, let's ask Katie, because she's done an Olympic campaign as well. They're standing patiently by in Sacramento at the end of our Skype line, and it's the esteemed Katie Pettibone and David Blanchfield. David grew up in Australia and now they're married. They call themselves partners, I guess, so they're married. Bravo Zoo to them living up in Sacramento. And rather than that name, I might put their nicknames up, because they are super sailors. Katie's been known since at least the 95 America's Cup as Katie Bone or K-Bone. So I think Steve Gruber the other day on the show called her K-Bone. And David Blanchfield, of course, is known as Ratty. David, how did you get that nickname?
Well, probably not from going to Hobart scurrying around on the bow like I tried to last year, but basically scurrying around when I was a young fella, up and down on the bow and running around. And next thing, someone's like, "You're like a rat, mate. You're like a rat."
Is that it?
Oh, that's a nice story.
So
is that it?
Kind of came about pretty quickly. Yeah, there's not a lot to it, Tom.
That's a lot.
Katie, is that true?
Yeah, that is true, and I had to explain that one to my grandmother when I brought him back home to Michigan. I'm not sure they believed that, though.
But you call him David, right? You don't call him Ratty.
I call him David, although sometimes I will call him Ratty when we're sailing.
I don't want to ask why.
Now, Katie, you're a fellow Michigander. We never knew each other growing up. You grew up in Port Huron, Michigan, which is up near the Thumb. And you didn't know Dawn Riley, who's another Michigander who grew up in St. Clair Shores, just barely north of Detroit. And I grew up outstate a little bit in Ann Arbor. And how did you end up in California?
Well, so I ended up in California because I went to law school here. And I intended to move back east, but I got a job in the Schwarzenegger administration and never left.
David, how did you end up in California?
I just got told where to be, Tom.
And loved every minute of it.
Oh, dear. Okay, let's get into some
Sacramento.
Say again. Say again, David.
I'm sorry, I actually hadn't heard of Sacramento when we did a little recon out here back in 2004. I think I was in between going back and forth to Valencia with probably with yourself, Tom, for Oracle. And next thing, Katie's like, "Right, we're moving to Sacramento." I'm like, all righty then. Okay, so great spot though, good spot.
Well, let's go to our first slide in this segment. I love this picture of the two of you. Thanks for Katie for sending that picture and a few of these, most of the others. I got some off the internet. Ratty, let's start with you. You were sailing. I mean, we've been trying to get you on the show to tell us what happened. This horrific accident, a gash to your leg. You were sailing on Moneypenny. Have you sailed on Moneypenny a lot?
Yeah. So, ironically, I kind of when the boat was first launched in 2008 as Moneypenny, built by McConaughey's in Sydney, I was there as a captain for the last stages of the build. So we finished actually off with Oracle again in 2007, moved straight over onto this project. The boat was launched in Sydney, and the great Mark Rudiger was the navigator, and we did some events, and the boat never really took off and had some problems, and it had various names. It moved about the world, and I think even Charlie Enright in the 11th hour, I'm not sure if they were called 11th hour at that stage, they did a transatlantic and got donated through Rolfie to the United States Merchant Marine and had a bit of a life, and it came back to Sydney under Sean Langman, and he reinstated the name Moneypenny. And so just mid-December of last year, Sean gave me a ring and said, "Hey, do you want to come and do Hobart?" And I'm like, "Oh, of course, on the old boat." So, I got down there, and, the boat was in great condition, or is still in great condition. I think it was called Bad Pack for a while in San Diego. They did some modifications to it, and the boat was actually very well set up, and it was in good condition, and new sails and et cetera for the Hobart. So the preparation for the Hobart is just, you can't be down there a week before. You need to be down there a few weeks, and you get, just set up for that event. It's just such an unknown race. And so, we're into it. It was a great Norris start. We had a brilliant start on Moneypenny with Sean and Langman and Gordon Maguire. Matt Humphreys was the navigator. And we got out of the heads in great shape. And probably one of the first 60s, maybe the second 60 out. And down the coast we go. And obviously from all you folks would probably know, it was a quick race. The Maxis were well and truly gone. We had a spinnaker up actually all the way to Tasman Island. And that's where I got hurt. I was one of the bow guys. I was in the pit and on the bow, 54 years of age. I'm not sure what you're still doing on the bow, David. But anyway, we were, coming in, and we were right amongst the division of boats that we needed to be in against racing. We only had a boat a couple of 100 yards behind us, right off Tasman. I look up to my starboard side, and Tasman Islands are like a half mile away. And we were coming in pretty hot. We still had the sail combination, maybe a jib top staysail, and you have to alter course at Tasman Island to come over towards Hobart. Tasman Island's about 3.5 hours from the finish, so in a way I was quite lucky. And so, the boys are like, well, we've got to drop the Genoa staysail on an inner forestay. So I went forward, and I kept saying to myself, just wait for the right opportunity to go forward to drop this sail, because we had a lot of water coming over the bow. And when you're down off Tasman Island, the seaway really stands up quite steep. It's very short seaway. So you think, yeah, here's Hobart. You're almost going to be there, 3 hours away from the finish. And I waited at the mast to get the right timing to go forward. Again, had my life jacket, harness combination on. I went forward, I clipped on, did everything, as I normally would do. And I just all remember I got forward, and I just remember hearing the guys in the cockpit just going, hold on. And your instinct is to get your head down, and next thing I just gone. And I went all the way along the jackstay till it took up on one of the safety pad ice. My life jacket inflated, and I was down to the leeward side, hard on my harness. And at the time, I'm like, something's happened to my knee. Something's happened. I'm not good here. I'm not good. And the boys come forward to grab me, and we all got washed again back. And so now there's three of us all down to leeward, all clipped on. And I'm like, my knee, guys, my knee. So they drag me up, get on the weather side. I didn't run boots for that race. I ran shoes, and there's just blood pouring all out the bottom of my wet weather pants. So they get me down below. I could tell something quite serious. So they get me down, and at the time, Sean had busted his hand. We'd had a ton of water down below because we'd blown the companionway hatch off a few hours earlier. So we had water, we had pumps going, we had water everywhere. We're right up Tasman Island. So you think, hey, the race is, it's going to be over soon. And I get down below, and the guys are like this. Actually, before I got down below, they cut my wet weather pants off and went, oh my goodness, no rat, no. They're like, no rat, no. And, there's stuff, all weirdness happening. And so they get me down below, they strap it up. And again, all the guys had so much going on. There's water, we're trying to alter course. There's 45 to 50 knots because you just get this acceleration of wind around Tasman Island. So all hell's going on, as well as my injury. Sean's injured. The hatch is blowing off, so we just got water going down below. Guys are trying to hold that.
This is Sean, your owner, right?
Sean Langman, yeah.
He's got his hand. I see at the dock. There was an interview that was, and he's got his hand all wrapped up. You guys were in bad shape.
Yeah, he tried to save the hatch. The hatch got blown off, and he was holding it. And you can imagine a hatch as the wind got a hold of it like a windsurf. He's trying to hold that. And now I've got hurt, so we're both down below, and he got the first bandage on there and just strapped it up tight. And I'm like, I'm fine, boys, I'm fine. So they go about, and we keep, obviously we're racing, and we've got the boat that we need to beat is 100 yards behind us. They owed us time, so we're in good shape to win our division. So, you don't really think about what's happening. You just kind of get into it, keep going. So after a few minutes, I did a few self-tests on my, I'm feeling my leg, and I'm like, oh, that doesn't, this is not good. So I just lay there quietly. They gave me a couple of pain killers. And that was me for the 3 hours.
How'd you staunch the bleeding? I mean, we'll show the gash here in a minute, but you must have been bleeding like a proverbial stuck pig.
Yeah, they just bit a hemorrhage bandage around it, and there was still, there was some blood coming out, but I raised my leg, Tom. You raise your leg, they say, so I raised that, so the blood was running somewhere else. So, I can't recall that exactly now, but there was times where it was painful, and there was times when I was like, I feel like, I should be okay here. So we get to the finish, and we beat the boats that we need to, and we go on to win our Division 0. So everyone was pretty chuffed. And we get to the dock, and the ambulance were there, and they take me off to Hobart Hospital, and now we're at the story of 10 weeks into it, and it's a very slow recovery. You'll probably see from the photos that it was incredible gash. It's gone from one side of the kneecap all the way around to the other. There were 80 odd stitches on the outside and 40 on the inside.
80 outside and 40 inside.
40 on the inside to attach. They were going to dissolve, and around 60 to 80, 70 on the outside.
Many.
Well, I first heard about this, Ratty, when I think Katie texted me or called me maybe and said, that he's not in great shape. And I went online and saw this somewhere. I guess it was Sail World. That's why I've got up in the upper right corner there, the credit. Justin, relative to the most recent finisher at the time of writing, Moneypenny, quote, injured crew David Blanchfield washed from the bow to the mast, cut his right leg, ambulance arrived and is attending to him. And we thought, Katie, didn't we think originally that he had a broken leg? That's what you heard, right?
Yeah, there were reports that there was a broken leg, but it was actually turned out to be you could see the bone, but it wasn't broken.
Oh, gosh.
Well, it almost would have been better if it had been broken, maybe. But okay, here we go. Gordon Smith and others there are going to show the pictures, aren't they? So here they are. Now that, Ratty, is what, in the ambulance?
Yeah, that's from the ambulance. That you can't really tell a lot from that. It was quite deep. You can see it's like it's symmetric, the way it goes from one side to the other. So I'd have to go back on board the boat. I said to Katie to find out exactly because I know where I clipped on and I know where I ended up. So there must be some sort of avenue. It might have been the hatch. But the way it's cut it open, and you'll see on the other photo, the most recent one of when it's healing, it's just sliced it just completely around. So again,
okay, you ready for this one? This one is right after you landed. You docked in, and now this one is from a few days ago.
Yeah, that's probably a week ago. That's slowly healing. The stitches are obviously out, but it's still an open wound. From February 1st, the wound care nurse up here at Sutter has said 3 months for that to actually close all the way up. And I was with her this morning, and it's coming along. It's slow. It's coming along.
So I said in the tech check, it looks like you could drive a Mack truck through that slice. Is it wide open or is it not stitched? Is it packed? What do you do?
Well, it's so deep because it's probably down, initially it was down to the bone. That there was so much, what did the doctor first said, it's such a complicated injury and complex because there's so many stages of healing of the skin because it's healing from the inside out. So there's so much of the skin to reattach. So from what's happening on the inside is going well, but when you look at it from the outside, it's still got a long way to go. And so there's another few months there before that's kind of healed up.
God.
And you can't see it with the shadow there, so you can see if you're looking from the screen on the right side, but on the left side where it's in the shadow there, it goes up the same amount up the other side, so my right side.
So it wasn't a side stay or a baby stay or something?
No, it must have been because my wet weather pants never tore. It must have just been
so it was
something
internal. It sliced through your pants, but didn't slice through your pants. It
did not slice, just sliced under. So it must have hooked something. And again, Tom, I'd have to go back on board if I went back on board, I'd be able to tell you exactly.
Oh, bloody hell. Well, I'm glad, obviously, we're all delighted that you survived it. And I won't show the pictures again. Katie sent a couple others that were even, frankly, Katie, were even more gruesome. I only put those 2 in just because we promised that we'd show these things. But, well, it's a rough, dangerous sport. What's a guy your age doing up on the bow of a 50-plus footer?
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Yeah. Well, it happened on the 28th, so we had a pretty fast race down to Hobart. Everyone had a pretty fast race. So, I wrote my birth date's the 29th, so I was 54 on the 29th. And I lay there and I said to myself, "What are you doing, man? What are you doing?" But at the same time, Tom, I wouldn't have done anything differently. I mean, I waited for, I thought, the right opportunity to go forward. I had my life jacket harness on. I clipped on. If I hadn't, I for sure would have been washed off the boat. And who knows what happens then.
Yeah.
But so and even today, I still said I wouldn't have done anything different. You're going forward, you're racing, you need to drop a sail. You're waiting for the opportunity to, we did have a lot of water coming over, like I said, and then you're like, oh, here we go, here's a chance. So you get forward, you clipped on, you're waiting for the sail to get released, the halyard, and, next thing you just get that call, hang on, and,
two huge waves came over the bow, and this.
There was one, the first one, initial one that just got me on my own, and then we obviously went through the back or the front of that. And then went down the next one, and that's when some guys had come forward. They clipped on, and we all got washed again back down the leeward side. They didn't get injured. They were young fellas. So they all probably laugh, going, come on, mate, up you come. So
well, there's some people on here calling us Gore Illustrated. We're not going to show that picture again. It's too gory. And somebody else said, please show... Steve Groover is saying, please show the gruesome ones. I don't think we need to do that, but tough Aussie. I mean, we all know the Aussies are tough. And not only did you tough it out and you lived to talk about it, and survived, obviously, and in pretty good shape. I hope, knock on wood. Are there any long-term implications?
Yeah, it's again, like they've said, it's complicated. It's doing the process of healing now to get through those stages.
But nerves, can you have no nerve damage? No.
I can on my right side. There's there's weakness in the nerves. There's a little weakness in some ligaments, but generally it's looking like it'll be okay.
Katie, you get them out tonight. It's Friday night. Go out dancing.
No dancing yet, just dog walking.
Ratty, enough on all that, and plus you guys won your class, so bravo Zulu.
Yep.
Well done.
I think the boat went on. They had a good year, and they went on to. I think Sean won Ocean Racer of the Year just recently last week down at the CYC, and I think the boat ended up winning the big one down there. It's called the Blue Water Point Score. So good for those guys, and that's what you do when you go to Hobart, Tom.
Yeah, well, say again.
I was thinking, are we having fun yet on the Hobart, that darn race? He's done so many, and I'm like, do you ever learn?
How many have you done, Ratty?
That was 29.
Okay. Not as many as Sid. We're going to talk about Sid in a minute, but the late, great Sid Fisher. But Jody Shields, who you must know from up at Wanji, Jody is saying, I have it on good authority that Langman said, let's take a knee for Tassie Island. Seems lost in translation. He also said, by the way, this bloke would do anything to get out of a shout at the bar.
Yeah.
Did you never got to the bar? So what happened after they took you to the hospital? How long were you there in the hospital in Hobart?
24 hours. I got in on the 28th of the morning, left it on my birthday at lunchtime on the 29th. Had an afternoon there, and then my sister flew down from Sydney and collected me, and we flew back up to Sydney.
You weren't in hospital in Sydney then? You were?
No, I was able to stay off that. It was still stitched up and all bandaged up, and I had a brace on. So I was recovering, and then Katie and I were talking about her coming down or what the process for me to get home. And in the end, I was advised not to fly back to the US for a few weeks just because of the state of the swelling from a long flight, 15 hours. So I ended up getting back to the States until about the 18th of January.
Well, we finally got you on the show. We've been trying. We were going to interview you in the hospital, and then Katie and I were talking. We said, let's just let the guy relax, get home, and when you get back here, we'll get you on. So sorry for the gore. Anybody who we got a lot of people on here, more people than when we started this segment. Let's talk some more about what else. We don't need to look at that picture anymore, do we?
No.
Let's talk. Julia says no. You've done. You said how many of these? 29.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was that was 29. It might be 30, but it's 29.
And Katie, this is a few years ago. This is the small Wild Oats, the 6-footer, and you were on this boat as well, Katie.
That's right. This was the women's team where we got second. Great boat. We had a great race. Just got ahead of the southerly. We turned the corner, and as we were finishing, the southerly was rolling in. But yeah, it was a beautiful ride. I've done a couple of Hobarts, but I keep saying, here in America, we go to warmer places, whether it's, Bermuda or Hawaii.
Yeah, Cabo, Mexico, PV. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, Australians have to go where it's colder, more dangerous. Yep.
Well, we love the race. We cover it. Ratty, I guess you know this. We do a watch party usually for the start, and we do updates and so on because our audience, everybody in the world loves this race. And this one is maybe arguably the best of all the 600-plus milers. And, we're just glad you're in one piece, so to speak. We met, I guess, Ratty, when you were doing the Cup. Remind me, what campaigns was it? The first one we did together was 07?
Yeah. So that shot there, that was 03 with Prada in Auckland. Yeah, that's in Auckland. There's Max Serena.
Is that you right in front of Max?
Yeah. Max Serena, the boss of Prada now, boss of Luna Rossa.
That's Ratty, and that's Max Serena. Who's this?
That's Michele Evoldi.
Oh, yeah, he's a nice guy, smart guy.
Yeah.
He was with us also in 2010, wasn't he?
He was 2007. I believe he was still with Luna Rossa in Valencia.
So we did the
guide.
Dicko when Dicko was driving. We did the 2007 Cup together, right?
Yep, yep.
Yeah, I think McKelly and Max was also with us in 2010. I mean, for the Need a Gift match. And how many cups have you done?
5. So 92 with Sid, 95 with Sid, 2000 with John Coleus on Abracadabra, 2003 with Prada, and 2007 with Oracle. So 5.
And Katie, let's switch over to you now, if we may. And I'm going to show a slide because I pulled this off your website this morning, and it's really cool. I love your spirit and enthusiasm for all these years that we've known each other, I guess 94, 95. Life is for living, you say. You are never too old to set another goal or dream another dream. That's your philosophy, I guess. And I'll read the fine print here. Life is short, and it's meant for living, doing, feeling. Waking up with regrets about should have, could have, and notions about how things may have been is not what this school of life is all about. Right?
That's right. That's right. That's my motto.
You're a public, I mean, not only are you a lawyer and I know a lobbyist and whatever you're doing in Sacramento, but you're also a public speaker and an esteemed, I mean, yacht racer, sailor.
And I'm also a marine biologist, have written for the New York Times and sailing magazines.
Wow.
Yep.
Well, what are you doing up in Sacramento now? That's the State House behind you, isn't it, in this picture?
Yep. That's the capital of California. And I'm up here now. I work for a law firm, international law firm called Arnold and Porter, doing public policy, which is essentially lobbying regulatory work. And I thought I would be heading back to the East Coast or even Florida, but here I am.
Member of St. Francis.
Member of St. Francis, member of Bayview Yacht Club, and also, of course, a member of Port Huron Yacht Club.
Now, Julie, you know where Bayview Yacht Club is? They call that the Barview Yacht Club. It's a brand new club. Have you been in the new clubhouse? This is in Detroit.
I have not. No.
I haven't either, but Clark Chapin and several others are on here. We had Ron Sherry on the show not too long ago, the famous DN, the ice boater. Bayview Yacht Club's a terrific club. They had Jerome was his name, the bartender there for years and years and years that fixed the Hummer. The Hummer was a drink, Julia. Not any kind of anything else. You can shake your finger at me if we carry on. Okay, let's carry on with some slides because we met, as we said, in the 95, I think, leading up to the 95 campaign. I don't think you're in this photo with Leslie Egnot and the women's team, Bill Koch's team, in the 95 Cup down in San Diego on Mighty Mary. Some very fine sailors in this, and you almost won the trials, except for whoever that guy was that put a deal together. I wonder who that was, Katie.
Yeah, I wonder.
And that was at the behest of your owner as well as Dennis Connor and John Marshall. But you're in this photo.
That's right.
That's you standing with your hands on your hips.
That's right. I think we're looking at our competitors.
What were you? You were trimming?
Yes, I was a starboard trimmer.
Is this the highlight of your? So what's the highlight of your very extensive sailing racing career?
Well, there's different reasons for different highlights. I would say I loved sailing these boats from the perspective of how very specifically designed they were for what their role was, what they needed to do, upwind, downwind, and the fight for every tenth of a knot on those was, I mean, I loved that. I loved it, whether it was a little tiny ease in the runner or a little move in the Genoa car, or same with the main. It was just a lot of fun, really rewarding from a technical aspect. And I loved how we threw those boats around. I mean, these were 80-foot boats and we were inches apart. And one of my favorite things, and I remember I even wrote into one of your shows, was in 2000 when we were down doing the Auckland Cup, I had an injury jumping horses, and they thought I broke some vertebrae and my hip, and I was going in for a CAT scan, but it was the finals between Prada and America One. and myself and the medical folks, we actually waited, and I said, can we just wait to do the CAT scan? I want to watch the final. And they were happy to do it. And we were just entranced watching these boats duel. And then, of course, after the race, then I went in and got my CAT scan. But I would say one of the most rewarding things was actually going to the Middle East and teaching Omani girls to compete against boys in the Persian Gulf. I think that was spiritually, intellectually, and just emotionally really rewarding.
What kind of boats?
They were FAR 30s.
FAR 30s.
Yeah, Mum 30s, FAR 30s.
Let's stay on the Cup for a sec here. This is a shot. Now, I don't know, and you probably don't know either. You sent this to me. Your tender driver, I used to coach on a hockey team at St. George's.
Stevie
Cannett. Talk about nice kids, bright guys. He was with one of our teams too, Ratty. Was he with our 07 team? 04, 07?
I don't believe so. I don't think so. I don't believe the name's not familiar.
But before we leave this, Katie, tell us the story about the team supposedly asking Bill Koch for the bearded tactician. Is that true?
Well, it's kind of an interesting, like many things, there's probably some truth and then some not truth.
You were just for those that don't know, let me just set the stage. There was an all-women's team, and you were doing famously well, and then started to go on a skid late in the trials, the defense trials. And J.J. Fetter was your tactician, and she started to feel some heat, and some people thought maybe she wasn't up to the task. Whether she was or not, we'll never know. But then when Bill brought in Dave Dellenbaugh, the bearded tactician, there was a tremendous amount of heat from the press and the sponsors. And, of course, I was with Dennis. We loved it. We thought that was the best thing that could possibly happen. How'd that go?
Yeah, I mean, from the outside, I think it was quite a shock. But we'd had all the different coaches, from '92, and so Dellenbaugh had been with us from the get-go, right, from day one. And so, this is one of the things I like about the America's Cup is we think about a team as just the sailors, but as you know and as Ratty knows, the team is the entire compound. It's your front desk, it's your designers, it's your after guard, it's the people in the shed. And so, folks are like, oh my gosh, what is this? But he was just one of our team members. Yeah, he was a guy. And so I know from the outside and, marketing and that perspective that it was a shock, but it wasn't like we felt betrayed like some outsider. It wasn't like he went and hired, Russell Coots or something to come in.
Right. Good point.
I wasn't part of that decision. We had an afterguard group, because we had an A team and a B team, and there was discussions. And certainly in the debriefing, one of the things certainly later in the series was coming up was mistakes were hard to learn and move on, and some mistakes kept getting repeated. And so I believe they thought if we had somebody who has so much time under their belts that we wouldn't have maybe as many mistakes, tactical mistakes. I don't know if that's true or not. I actually think one of the more the bigger problem was that we got Mighty Mary too late. We spent all this time sailing the winning boat from '92 that so much of the way we thought about situations was based on how that boat performed. And Mighty Mary was extraordinarily different.
Much narrower, right? Much
more narrower. We never got a good balance between the mast and the boat. And so we just ran out of time, right? And so I think that Bill thought that having Dave on would buy us more time. And, that, as you said, we'll never know. And then, of course, that also led to the 3-boat final, which, again, we knew that was a possibility the day before, that we were told as a team that was on the table. But we were told that night, whatever happens, when you go to bed, we're going to tell you whether it is or isn't, because we wanted to know what we were racing for. And of course, as you know, because you were involved in it, it changed during the night. And so when we went to that race the next day where we thought who was going to the finals, we thought it was a do or die race, and in fact it wasn't.
Well, yeah, just again to set the stage for everyone else, just briefly, when I was with Dennis's team and their rules guy, and the discussion actually was Bill Center at the San Diego Union Tribune, the paper, who came up with the idea, well, these boats are so close, why don't we have all three of them go forward into some kind of a three-boat semifinal, which also we all got trashed. I mean, the papers, the media, ESPN, everybody. How can you do this? So what happened was that when we all went to bed that night, the deal that had been discussed was off. And I went to bed too and got a call at 4 a.m. because John Marshall and what was the name of their team? The Mermaid, Young America?
Pac 95.
Pac 95. That was before Young America. Well, that was 2000. Pac 95. John Marshall, they were ahead. They were going to get through to the finals, and whoever won between us that next day, Dennis's team and your team, were going to go through the finals against them. And Marshall said, "No, we don't need this. We don't want to be a part of this." And then overnight, they changed their mind. They're rocket scientists. They're tech people. Ran it through the computers. They were doing gaming theory and so on. And they came back, they called from the East Coast, so 7 a.m. on the East Coast, 4 a.m. our time, and said, "Hey, we do want to do this." And Dennis's philosophy is, well, if you're dead, you're dead. So why not? Let's give ourselves a second chance. And even Bill and David Rosso, you remember David, your guys were kind of lukewarm to it because it was going to be do or die that day, and the weather, it was kind of light and crappy that day. So it was one of these days where it may have been a roll of the dice. So I got a call, 4 o'clock, Eamon, they want you to write it up. Please we went to your team base. We did the deal. I sat there with my little computer and wrote the thing up as everybody was babbling and finally I said, "Okay, stop everybody. I'll read what I've got here and see if you agree." And that was basically the deal. And long story short, we then went out in Bill Koch's, that beautiful, what was that tender that he had built up in the Northeast?
Tabasco?
That wasn't the name of it. It was that beautiful boat that had been built at Hinckley, wasn't it?
Oh yeah.
But in any event, we had to. I was in the bottom of that boat, and I think Jerry Ladow from Dennis's team, and whoever the rep was from John Marshall's team, they may have gone direct. I don't know. Well, they didn't sail that day, so they didn't have to go out. So we got in Bill's boat because we only had one boat. We had Betsy, that big. And we got into the bottom, and we had to hide in the bottom of Bill's boat. And when we got out, and that boat pulled up behind Betsy, our team tender, the Dennis Conner team tender, and everybody saw us climb off Koch's boat, Bill's boat, and onto Betsy, and everybody knew there was something up, but they didn't know the deal was done. Gary Jobson found out, and then climbed on your boat afterwards, after you guys had won the race. After you had won the race, beaten Dennis, and you thought you were going through the final, and Gary Jobson told you, "Well, what do you think of this, Leslie Egnott?" Right? How'd that feel? What was your reaction when you heard that?
Well, so during the 95, myself and Merritt Palm were rotating in and out of races. And so just happened on that day, I actually wasn't sailing on the boat. So I remember finding out when I was on one of the tenders, and I saw the body language. I think people were pretty upset. I'll never forget Dawn Riley's body language. I thought she was going to punch somebody. But I mean, I knew why Bill did it. He wanted to give us more time. And
exactly. And sponsor fulfillment, as somebody has said up here, Steve Gruber saying that. Yeah, I thought Dawn was, I knew Dawn fairly well by then. I thought she was going to punch me out because, see, everybody blamed me because they knew I had to write it up on the computer. It wasn't my idea. I just got called in because I'm a bit of a wordsmith to write it up. So, Julia could have written it up. Hell, Katie, if you weren't racing that day, you should have written it up. You're the bloody lawyer, not me. I'm just a sea lawyer. Okay, let's move on because what a great career you've had. And I want to review some of the other things you've done quickly. You've done 3 campaigns in the America's Cup, the aforementioned 95 campaign, then with Dawn in America True down in 2000 down in Auckland, and then with Arriva. Again, Dawn was the GM of that campaign. First woman to GM a campaign in 2007 in Valencia. And then you've done 2 round the world races, Amer Sports in 01, 02, and then before that you were with Kayard and Team EF, which you guys won, right?
Yeah, well, Kayard won. We didn't, but yeah, the sponsor was very happy.
Well, it was a great campaign. There was a sad loss of somebody off your boat, right? Was that off your boat?
We didn't. No, we did not lose anybody. The Whitbread before that.
It was before that.
Yeah, but we didn't. And then there was one after 01, 02. There was somebody lost. But no, this campaign we didn't lose anybody, thankfully. And this is a funny one because Paul didn't get involved. That campaign, the EF campaign, actually started with a British team, the men's team. That was Laurie Smith and his guys. And then, of course, Silk Cut essentially bought them, and then Paul came in and brought an international team, and of course, the esteemed Mark Rudiger, and they won, which was fantastic.
The late, great Mark, yeah, he went way too early, the poor guy. And is that you on the handles?
Yep, that's me. I'm grinding on the main there.
Main pedestal, wow.
Yeah. That's a beautiful thing about racing in around the world is you end up doing pretty much everything. Although I really didn't. I didn't go up the mast. I just sent people up the mast. I helped pull them up.
Well, you're obviously smarter than Ratty. Did you go up on the bow?
That's his role.
We actually met during the 97-98 Whitbread, Tom.
Whose boat were you on, Ratty?
I was with Dennis on Toshiba, skippered by Dicko.
And yeah, right. How many legs did Dennis actually make in that one?
He actually did a couple. I want to say he did 3, actually.
He did 2, didn't he? Did he do 3?
I thought it was only 2.
3,
I think it was 2, but whatever.
So he went from Sydney to Auckland. He went from Fort Lauderdale to Baltimore, and then he did the last leg from in France there from La Rochelle to the finish in Southampton. So
I have a question for Katie from Jody Shields, the aforementioned our Fozy and friend in Wanji down north of Sydney, and a terrific commentator, by the way. It's too bad he's not still not doing SailGP, in my never humble opinion. If Katie had a magic wand and could put together her perfect America's Cup, what boats and what location would she choose? And I'd ask you, Ratty, the same thing.
Well, I think I would go back to monohulls, and I would go with boats that maybe weren't dragging around 20 tons in their keel, but so something that could go fast, maybe get up in waves and plane or close, but it would be closer to what we had back then. And location-wise, I mean, I would probably say, I'm kind of biased, so I like San Francisco, where everyone can come and watch. But otherwise, I don't know. I would want someplace where we could get big wind and waves. So.
That's because San Francisco is what, Julia? Reliably?
Yeah, reliably windy.
And iconically beautiful.
And iconically beautiful, right?
Ratty, where would you run the Cup? And what boats?
Yeah, again, with the monohull, I mean, we grew up with those sorts of boats through to 2007, and they're a great, match racing boat, and these fellas that are doing it now with these cats are showing that you can do the same. But to answer your question, probably Auckland. I really enjoyed Auckland. I love the base. You're just being in New Zealand, and the towing out to the race course was always, the tow out was always a big thing, and what's going to happen out on the water in Auckland, and and now they've got all those different race courses. I remember we had 3 different race courses in Auckland. We had one in Closter and one, so for those version 5 boats. So probably Auckland, and second place again would be San Francisco.
Did either of you ever go to Newport when the Cup was there? Prior to 83 or before? You weren't even born in 83, Katie, were you?
That's right. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Yeah, in Auckland, Steve Groover saying Auckland has a great mix of weather, and Andrew Pindar saying the Miami stopover of the first Volvo was almost 21 years ago to the day from right now. That's hard to believe. Yeah. Jody Shields is inviting everybody. He said a TP70, an oversized TP52 to Lake Macquarie. I'm sure that would be fun. I just a couple more slides here and then let you folks go. But I want to do the Sid Fisher remembrance because you sailed with him for so long, Ratty. And this is another shot of these boats. My God. And the nice thing is, Katie, they're still out there. And Ratty, you sail on these boats too. They're still out there racing, right?
Yep.
What about your Olympic campaign?
It was epic. I mean, that was amazing. I regret that I had such a significant knee injury early in the campaign because I think that hampered our performance, certainly hampered my performance. But yeah, I sailed with Mike Easton on the NACRA 17. It's a shame. The boats were great, but they really should have been tested and trialed. There were so many manufacturing issues and changes going on, and the boats were very different. Now they've gone to fully foiling. We were semi-foiling there. But yeah, it was a great experience, 2016.
Yeah, well, they should have, exactly. They should have not tried to make the boats foilers, but everybody wants to go foiling now. Everybody wants to go foiling now.
Not everybody.
Well, Ratty, did you ever do an Olympic campaign? Did you want to?
No, I wasn't really a dinghy guy. I was kind of a bit more into the bigger boats straight away. So Katie and I raced. We had a NACRA 18. We raced together for a little bit. One thing, I go back to what John said earlier. One thing that I didn't want to happen is capsize because I'm not I like being on the water, Tom. I don't like being in it. So,
I'm with you. And Dennis is the same.
Whenever we raced in NACRA 18, I would be making sure we weren't capsizing. That'd be the main.
When you were doing the 18, who was driving?
Me.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. I've got one other campaign photo here. What the hell campaign is this, Katie?
That was NACRA training, the Go Fast training.
Where is that?
That's actually behind our house.
That's up in Sacto in Sacramento?
Yeah, up in Sacto. Yep, my lovely Ducati.
Oh, boy. Well, we celebrate all that both of you are doing in the sport, have done in the sport, and will, I'm sure, do for many years ahead. And Katie, you've been speaking. You've been a great inspiration for other women in the sport. This is some time ago. You spoke at a Midwest Women's Sailing Conference, and I ran this slide not just because of that, but because we like to call ourselves a drinking show with a sailing habit. So all the people on here, they have a contest. You probably know this, but they have a contest that goes on during the show, and they'll seize on some word. Like if I say non-sailing CEO, I start to ping on the guy at US Sailing Now. And every time I say that, and we don't know. We don't know what it is. If I knew, we'd be saying that every 20 seconds. Where was this conference?
That was up in Wisconsin. Yep.
Yeah.
Really fun. Women of every age. Different seminars. Learning to sail, getting better at sailing. Just a variety of different things. It was pretty fun.
Are we as a sport? Are we progressing? Is women's sailing getting better? Participation and so on.
I think your comment earlier, I grew up sailing mixed, but I didn't necessarily sail with a lot of women on my boat. So I do think we are getting better. I think we are getting more women's participation. I think yacht clubs are really good about having women's events or, people letting their boats out to women to sail and different racing. And so I think we are. And, frankly, the Olympic, the IOC, when they said, look, we want to have 50-50 in all the sports, and they forced Saudi Arabia to put a woman on their team, that was good. I think that is moving the bar. So I'm seeing a lot more women just in general sailing and competing. The Magenta Project, great effort getting women into big boats, Grand Prix sailing, and people helping everybody. So
and interesting because Andrew Pindar is a FOS. He's been on the show a number of times. He's on that board of Magenta, the Magenta Project, and I'm watching the show today. Well, that's good. I'm glad to hear that. And I want to say again, thanks for coming on. But we want to do one more segment before we let you go. If you're just joining us, we're an hour and 24 minutes into this one. And they're up in Sacramento where they live, just the state capital here in California, about a 2.5 hour drive up north and a little east of us. We have Katie Pettibone and her husband, their partners. Now, for how long have you been married?
For years. 4 years?
6 years.
Who's
6 years.
counting?
How long have you been together?
Who's
It depends on when the clock starts.
Julia.
I understand
Huh?
that. Oh, that's a perfectly
Oh my
fine
God.
answer.
What does Katie think about mixed plus endeavor going? What's that mean, Alan Long? What does Katie think about the mixed plus endeavor going on recently? Like in the 470 class where it's required that you have mixed? I think that's what he means. You have to have a male and a female in the 470, for example, or in the NACRA. Well, the NACRA.
Yeah, I mean, that was the way it was with the NACRA, and I think it's been good because we've seen now a number of the female NACRA sailors are now on the Sail GP boats. So they definitely gained the foiling skills and also, continued to build their own sailing skills. So, I mean, I think it's good. It's definitely what the IOC wants. So, I mean, it is what it is. I like it, but I always sailed mixed gender. I actually chose sailing as a sport opposed to other sports because I could compete against guys.
Well,
So for me,
as I said at the top of the show, it just never got. Maybe it's not a Michigan thing. I'm sure it's all over the place. Whether you're in snipes, lightnings, thistles, as somebody said, these great one design classes and the other classes around the world, we just never even thought about it. If you had a capable sailor, male, female, kid, old, you sail together, right, Julia?
Absolutely.
And cruise together too.
Absolutely.
And as Paul Henderson, the former president of ISAF, said, if the girls are there, then the boys are more likely to go to the club too. And he's right. You want men and women, teenagers, kids, all. And it just was never an issue, and hope it won't be. Let's. You see up here on the monitor. I'm going to switch now to the late great Sid Fisher because, Ratty, you sailed with him for years on Ragamuffin. Tell us about the gentleman.
Oh, well, it's sad to hear we passed 2 weeks ago today, actually. I first met Sid with the 92 Cup Challenge Australia. And, the teapot, we lived on a barge at the end of where Bill Koch had the set up there in not in Mission Bay, Point Loma. Yep. We had a barge set up. It was very... back then you didn't care. You were happy to be there to do the Louis Vuitton. And, I think, I don't know, did we win a race? I think we may have won a race against Ian Murray's. What did he have there? Spirit. I think we beat Spirit Australia in one race out of San Diego. But I've got a lot of Sid stories. I ended up working for him personally, running the Ragamuffins. He bought a couple of quick stories. He rang me. We were in San Diego in '92. And everyone used to joke that Sid would do a phone call at night to check that you were in your room. Well, I was in my room at night. We were staying at the Super 8 Hotel right there in Point Loma. He made a reservation for, I'm not sure how many guys, but the whole team. And when we got there, they didn't have the booking correct. So we all came from LA on a bus down to the Super 8 right there along Point Loma. And anyway, the reservation was a muck-up. So he ends up sorting it out. But to get back into it, he rings me in the middle of the night, 10:30. And you have to understand Sid to know his voice. He'd be, "Oh, g'day, it's me." I'm like, "Hello?" "Yeah, it's me." "Yeah, hello?" "Yeah, it's me, it's Sid." "Oh, hi, Sid, hi." "Yeah, listen, tomorrow you're not going to be racing on that boat. That boat's done now. I've got another project for you. We're going to Fort Lauderdale. I've just bought 2 50-foot racing boats. So what you'll do in the morning is you're going to be sick tomorrow," because I was the bowman. And we only had one bowman. There was, and that was me. "So tomorrow morning you're going to be sick. So you won't go. Tell your roommate that you're not feeling well and you'll come down later." So we wake up. I get this call. I'm like, we'll lay there all night going, "Was that Sid?" "That was Sid." "Okay." So I lay there all night. The alarm goes off. The fellow I was rooming with, Ben, he was a trainer, so he'd gone off to the gym. He came. I said, "Oh, I'm not feeling good, mate. I won't be able to make it." "Oh, okay." So whilst he went off to the gym, I had to pack all my stuff. So I'd been there for 3 months. I had bags everywhere. I had to pack all my stuff because Sid was coming to pick me up. And that was it. We got in a car and we left. And I never saw some of those guys that were racing. They didn't know where I'd gone, what had happened. And next thing I was in Fort Lauderdale. And Sid had bought 250 footers. They were called Will at the time. They were a Japanese owner. And one was called Will 89 and one was called Will 91, with how the names went by. So he sent one boat off, Ragam, the Will 91, the latest one, to do the 50-foot circuit, and that was run by Russ Nutter, if you remember Russ Nutter.
Yeah, for sure.
And Mary Cunningham. And then the other 52, the other 50 went off to Hawaii to do the Kenwood Cup. Sid loved the Kenwood Cup. He loved Hawaii. We'd always run into Dick Gooch, another good mate of his, and probably yourself, Tom, Dickie Gooch.
Yeah.
If you remember him. And so we'd be going to Hawaii. So Sid would send these boats off to the various. But to jump ahead, one of the things when the boats did get back to Sydney, and I was still a young guy working for him, on a Monday morning, the boat had to come out of the water to get the anti-foul. And he would always say to me, make sure you get 3 quotes. I want you to get 3 quotes. So I'd spend my morning, I'd be panicking, I'd be running around trying to get 3 quotes for the anti-foul job that's got to happen on Ragamuffin. In the meantime, I'd be going off. He's already rang the boatyard and told him just get on with it and just paint the boat. By the time the young fella's made a decision, it's going to be too late. I want to put the boat back in the water by Wednesday. So hence I didn't know all this. I'm panicking, running around trying to get a quote for $1,700 or $1,800 for the anti-foul job. He's already done the deal with the yard. But that was my test. The test was to go about, get the quotes. So I get the quote and I go to him and he's like, oh, good on you. No, very well. Good work. So at the end of the week, we've got to put the boat in the water. And the yard back in the day, and it's probably still today, no cash, no splash. So Friday afternoon, 3 o'clock, I go to the yard manager. Okay, we got a lot. Oh, I need a check. You need to get a check. So the check was $1,879 for the anti-foul job. So I'd ring Sid, and Sid had already known this. He's already paid the bill. It was the whole exercise for me, being a young 22-year-old, to go through
the process.
And not again. It's checking is good, trust is good, checking is better. So I came back with the quote of $1,879. That's what the check had to be made off, and that was exactly what he paid over the phone during the day. So he already knew what had happened. So. And I'm sure that's how, with James Spithill, I remember him always saying to me, he's going to be bloody good, that guy. He's going to be bloody good, that kid. And there you go. That was how we could pick out the guys.
Yeah, and let me ask you a question apropos Ragamuffin. Jody Shields is asking, can Ratty please tell us why Sid called his boats Ragamuffin?
That's a great question. I should know the answer to that. Before they were called Ragamuffin, I'd have to think what they were called. Bumblebee? Were they Bumblebee?
I think that's right.
Back in the day. But I don't know the answer to I'm sure there is a, but I believe they're.
The way Jody asked it almost sounded like he knew the answer, and he was trying to get you to say it.
And I should know for sure.
Whatever it was.
But yeah, and then I'll just finish on one other quick story. They've got a lot of stories for Sid, and I know was in. So we did the next campaign in '95, Sydney '95. We were based out of Mission Bay, and our base was next to One Australia, and we could never find a navigator, and not that anyone that Sid trusted. So Sid decided he would be the navigator for the Louis Vuitton. So the biggest smile on his face, and I always remember was that, and it was this day that it's etched in history, Tom. It was the day that One Australia sunk. Now, we didn't know. He had the biggest smile on his face after that race. We didn't know the tragedy or what had happened during the race because it was a foggy day. It was raining, misty.
Oh, it was an awful day.
Racing the Japanese, and we won. And, we found the mark, and we were able to find the top mark because it was lumpy for San Diego, again, raining, foggy, misty. And just correct me if I'm wrong, was it Peter Gilmore was the helmsman of Japan, I think, back then?
Yeah, he was.
So we beat the Japanese, and we had gone past One Australia. They were on the upwind and we were on the downwind. And, we didn't know what was happening. But, when we finished that race and Sid had the biggest smile on his face, I still remember, that we'd won, he'd navigated, and it wasn't until we were towing back into Mission Bay there and we had a hell of a tow back in because we had the seaway right behind us, and we ended up going right past. We were towing in, and he had his old boat there called Gazabel, the tender, and we surfed right up to it. The tow line slack in the water, and we're right alongside the tender as we're coming in Mission Bay Cutting. But that was a classic day, and I always remember Sid's face smiling, and once he heard that One Australia had, sunk and everyone was okay, he probably had another smile on his face that, oh, hang on, I might be able to do a deal here. Because One Australia and Sydney 95 were quite close, but I won't get into that.
You mentioned Ralphie Stites earlier on, and he was up the mast with Dennis that day and got banged up pretty good.
Yes, yeah.
That was not pretty. Well, if I'd known that nothing goes down like a Foster's. Remember that? That was the sponsor of that boat, and Fog Machine is saying, reminding us that. If I know we were going to talk about that, I would have put that, 1 minute video that it got voiced that they did that, and then Peter Montgomery, he actually then came on and voiced it, and that's the one that's on the internet, not the actual television. But what a character he was. When I'd come down there to Sydney and I'd call him up, or he would find out I was there, he'd invite me over to the Royal Sydney Yacht Squadron. Or I'd stay at the squadron, in fact, because it had internet. It wasn't great, but it had internet, and I'd stay there even if we were doing something over at CYCA or something to do with the Olympics or whatever. But he apparently raced, you tell me how many he raced, but give or take 45, 6, 7 Sydney Hobarts?
I want to say 46 because I know that his best mate, Tony Ellis, is at 47. And I think Sid was always one behind him or maybe two behind him. And Tony, he just went on to do his 40, it could have been his 48th race. So I would say Sid's anywhere from 45 to 46. Yeah.
I looked at Di Pearson's write-up that she did after he passed a couple of weeks ago, and in there she said 47, so which is why I pulled that number, but give or take. I mean, then he did. I didn't realize this, and I kind of knew it in the back of my brain, having known him all this period, but he did fully 5. He did as many America's Cup challenges as Sir Thomas Lipton between 83, when he backed that 83 campaign, and to remember who in the 83 campaign, the name of the boat, remember the three boats were called Advance, Challenge, Australia. There were 3, and arguably those 3 boats, and having a 3-boat program really is what it was. They didn't completely cooperate 100%, but they cooperated quite a bit. You remember who steered Advance, he handpicked to steer his boat? Ian Murray.
Ian Murray, yeah.
So Ian Murray got launched to steer Advance, which is where I met Ian in '83 in Newport, and then he went on. Because Advance was just it was a terrible boat, and then Ian went over to Challenge 12 and was the trial. He became the trial helmsman for Australia 2 and really sped the boat up, sped Australia 2 up, especially downwind, because Aus 2 spinnakers were not correct until later in the trials and then in the Cup. So Sid, I didn't realize he'd done fully 5 campaigns, and of course not only Ian Murray did he launch, but he also, there's Sid on the left, back in 2000 or maybe 99, as they're getting ready to do this campaign in Auckland, which is where I met Jimmy, and Sid, I didn't know Sid, and Sid called up Dennis, and he said, I need some help. We don't have any money. I got this bright young kid, and we need some. There was some rules problem. I can't remember what it was. It was not a big deal. And Dennis said, Tom, go help them. Be sure you don't win it too well, he said. he said, don't win the rules thing too well. Just help them out a little bit. And we cooperated with them, and I got to know Jimmy a bit. And, of course, the gentleman, Jim Hardy, there on the right. What fabulous guy. Do you remember what boat? What was AUS 31? What was it before it was AUS? What country did that come from? What boat was that?
That was Sydney 95.
It was?
Yeah. So that 95 boat came back to Sydney after the San Diego Cup. And
so that was his boat in San Diego.
Yes.
It was an old boat, and they just kept it on for 2000, and he wanted to have a go, sent it over to Auckland after Russell had won it.
Yeah.
Yeah, look at Jimmy in this shot. That is circa 99 or 2000.
Yeah, I want to say that's there's a so the day of the 98 Hobart, which I was scheduled to do on Ragamuffin, I didn't go. I ended up in hospital with a hernia. They put that boat. We were putting that boat together, and on the day of the Hobart start of 98, they did a launching for Young Australia, sailing around Sydney Harbour prior to the start of the Hobart with Sydney 95, which became Young Australia. And they did a little, again, I was in hospital for Christmas, and they did a little tour of the harbour with Young Australia on the main and trying to G up, and Jimmy was there with a bunch of the boys, and they did that, and that kind of launched them into 99 to head over to Auckland.
Yeah, Clark Chabin saying, Jimmy was a baby.
Yeah, I met him when he was 7 at Royal Prince Alfred.
You did?
Yeah.
The whole Spithill family. You knew the sister too.
Right.
I know Tommy arguably as well as I do Jimmy. But let's see if you can. Let's go to the camera 4 here and see if you can identify all of the skippers from the 2000 America's Cup. Of course, we all know DC. He was skippering for New York Yacht Club. Katie.
Ed Baird.
Right, Eddie Baird.
Peter Gilmore.
Who was sailing for who? The Japanese, right?
Japanese, yep. Your
Francesco,
DeAngelis, just a superb gentleman. There's the stash. Some people said he looked like a 70s porn star when he had that stash. Paul Kayard, with whose team? Julia, you were with that team.
I was.
And I was with that team. Remember this?
Marc
Pajot sailing the French team. There's your former boss.
There he is.
Ratty. And my former boss, too.
Yeah,
That's John Coleus when he was our skipper for America 2, 87. Your former boss, Katie.
Don Riley. Yep.
Don Riley. And another real gentleman. I've done a couple campaigns with him, or at least one, Bertrand Passet. French, famously good guy. Did we figure out the name of this Spanish guy?
Pedro Campos.
Oh, is that Pedro?
Yeah.
I've actually been to his house. Boy, he looks young in that. And, of course, talk about baby face. There's Jimmy Spithill in 2000. Great photo. Great remembrances. Okay, that pretty well wraps it up. Let's go back to Sid for a minute, because these ragamuffins, we're not quite sure why he named the boat that, but we'll figure that out at some point. Put that in a future show. But speaking of Di Pearson, she wrote, and you already quoted this once, Ratty, the sayings he said practiced in everyday business and life were legendary. And he did mellow, right? He was pretty harsh in his younger days. He was a hard-nosed property developer in the tough business in Sydney, right?
Oh, definitely, yeah. And look, until you got to know him, and once you got to know him and he got to know you, you were, you know,
you were his brother.
You're there.
Exactly. And as I said, I used to go over. He'd come over. We'd take tea, and my favorites learned from him during this is Di Pearson saying during the 86 she did all these cup campaigns as his PR gal, I guess, on Steak and Kidney, America's Cup days. That was over in Perth and Frio. Continue to hold me in good stead today. One of them you just mentioned. Trust is good. Checking is better. Sounds like Ronald Reagan. And the other is delegation is not abdication. What do you think of that, Julia?
I think that's very good.
Huh?
I haven't heard that before.
Any others, Ratty, that come to mind?
Oh, not for life. No, I think just, you know, he's a great. Yeah, he was tough. But he had a way about him. He would test you, and once you got that out of the test mode, you were away. And James saw that. I saw that, and a lot of other young guys coming up. He looked after, and David Witt, who was the skipper of that big 100 you got there on the shot there,
yep.
The Ragamuffin 100.
Yep.
And, you get into his little group and, I did probably 12 Hobarts with him, 10 Hobarts, and winning an overall in 92 with him, and we're on my 24th birthday. And so it was, we had the late Chris Law as our helmsman back then, Tom. The late Chris Law. And I think he may have been on his first Hobart. So, yeah, it was, it was sad to hear he had passed, and I've heard that his memorial is at the CYC in 2 weeks today, the Friday, the 24th at Sydney at the CYC.
Okay.
So,
well, I won't be there. I don't think Julie will be there, but we will miss him.
I'll be there.
And Di Pearson and others have said he was Australia's greatest yachtsman ever. Certainly from a participation standpoint.
My goodness, yes.
The Silver Barracuda, as he was fondly known. Sid Fisher, 1927 to 2023. May he rest in peace. Finally, tell us what you folks are up to in the maxi world.
Well, if you can pick the photo, whichever boat stands out to you the most, there's the one that we're racing on. We had been racing on and we'll continue to race this year. It might be that green one. There it is there, yeah. So
who owns the boat?
He's a Swiss gentleman. And the boat is a Brion. It's around about 112 feet. Chris Main is the crew, the tactician. We have a few guys come out of New Zealand. Katie joins us now, and she's a trimmer. I'm not sure any of the other guys you may know. Dean Harper and etc. But yeah, he'll. The plan is to do some racing this season. He's planning on the boats in France, in La Ciotat, having a refit now. Yeah. So,
Brady, may I ask you a question? You're not doing the bow on this boat, are you?
No, I'm the crew boss. So you kind of just stand at the mast and
yell at everyone.
Yell, but hopefully I won't get involved.
That's a beautiful boat. And Andrew McIrvin, who's one of our favorite foes, he's been on. Mr. Dr. Andrew McIrvin, who's the Secretary General of the IMA. He'll be very proud of you. And then Katie, you're sailing on the boat as well?
That's right. I trim on it. So
I got this picture rather of it looks like the two of you going to a party from one of my spies. Is that a maxi party? I mean, this looks pretty flash.
I wish I still looked like that. That'd be the Louis Vuitton.
What
from
year?
Back in 2007. 07.
Haven't changed a bit.
07.
Yeah.
No, Maddie's hair might be a little grayer than he's grown. Certainly my hair is a little grayer. So guys, that was great. And Katie, full disclosure, Julia, Katie sent that photo and I stuck it in there. It's nice. Acid green is what somebody just referred to that color. James Bland, who's another baby boomer like myself. Acid green. What color do you call that?
Chartreuse.
Huh?
Lime.
It's actually, yeah.
I call it lime.
They've just had the boat repainted green again. I think it's going to be as bright or brighter than that shot. So,
Yeah.
Well, guys, that was fun. Thank you very much for doing this. We sure appreciate it. It was a lot of fun to have you on the show. Finally, after all this effort, Julia, wasn't?
Absolutely.
And it's not like we're very far away. I hope we see you in the grill room at St. Fancy sometime sooner than later.
Yes, definitely.
Take care of that leg.
Yeah.
Just a quick shout out to Steve Gruber. He's a good mate of mine. He and I go way back, so it's always good to see Steve Gruber's name mentioned. He's a good fan and a good guy. And
well, I did a cup with him.
And yeah, you go cup with him. And I think
what cup did you sail with him?
2000.
Oh, did you? Okay. Well,
yeah.
Steve is almost always on here. He's one of our very knowledgeable, and now I understand why he knows so much about the sport going back a ways as well. He must be old. How old is he? He must be as old as I am.
He's got to be a couple of years older than I am. I know I did a leg of the Volvo with him on De-Juiced. We went from Sydney to Hobart and then Hobart to Auckland. That's where we had a 2-hour stopover in Hobart. Glad they got rid of that sort of drama. But yeah, so no, Gruber's a great guy, good guy. I haven't seen him for years, so So just say good day to him.
Well, great.
Yeah,
Julia?
I was just going to say, don't forget to take the time to read the comments, and you'll see lots of your friends going by.
Yeah, we don't have a chance to get to all of the comments, obviously, because there's so many. I was putting over, I think, 300. Groover is saying, thanks, Rat and Katie. That was great. Thanks, and keep the rain out of the house. Yeah, it is going to rain a bit here. I don't think too bad, is it?
Not where we are.
Well, I hope not.
But maybe in Sacramento,
our
the river is going to rise.
Our sewer will back up, and then we won't be able to do the show number 600 next Tuesday. What a lovely couple, Jonathan Frank is saying. Yeah, go back and read the comments. Julie's absolutely right. Hey, I just one other comment. I know that the race of which both of you have done, the ocean race, are just passing south of Cape Lewin. I looked at the tracker just before we went to air, and that's, they're down to 4 boats, and the 11th hour now is having some real trouble, and we'll see how many of them get across to Itajaí. Hey, thanks, guys. Thank you very much indeed. From Sacramento, Katie Pettibone and David Blanchfield, a.k.a. KT Bone and Ratty.
Lovely.
Super sailors. Great guest, Ted Ryman in Cape Town is saying, get your boat ready. Yeah, we want to get ready for the rain. Hope you guys survive the floods, and hope your leg repairs 100%, David.
Thank you, Tom.
Okay. All the best. Ciao for now.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for coming on. What a lovely couple indeed. And as long as I've known both
of them.
Well, yeah, when you're doing an America's Cup campaign, and these guys, the sailing team, are out on the water all day, and then they come in, they're in the gym in the morning, and then they're in debrief, and I'm in the office most of the day or on a chase boat. You don't get to know some of the guys that well unless they're in the afterguard. So I didn't know David that well. We knew each other.
Right.
And we've got to know each other over here in the grill room at the St. Fancy in the meantime, at St. Francis Yacht Club. Great stuff. Thank you very much, guys. It gets us to this day in history, the 10th of March, and I'll bet nobody knew this. Well, maybe not. We got a pretty smart group on here. I sure as hell didn't know. What happened 2 years before the America's Cup on the 10th of March, 1849? And here's your first clue. You can see on the right, that gives it away. It's a patent application by, see if anybody knows, Abraham Lincoln. Can you read it sideways?
Yeah.
Manner of buoying vessels. He had a patent that he applied for that you could somehow pump air. Yeah, Clark Chapin saying Abraham Lincoln's patent. So he, as usual, is among the first to get it.
Right.
And apparently it's a boating show, right? So we had to do this. I have to find something that's, somehow boating related.
Right.
And sure enough, the only president, apparently, with a patent, Abraham Lincoln in 1849 applies for and then subsequently got a patent, the only president to do so, for a device to lift a boat over shoals and obstructions. What do you think of that? Did you have any idea?
No, because gold was discovered in California.
In 1849.
Yeah.
Yeah, the 49ers.
Yeah.
Okay, so much for that quick this day in history. These guys, I love having them on the show.
They both are terrific.
You know what? There is some America's Cup news, but there was a video, and frankly, it was comparing and contrasting, and Richard Gladwell wrote a good article. Go see Gladwell's article comparing and contrasting who's doing what on AC 40s and LEQ 12s. And we're an hour and 53 minutes into the show, and I knew we'd run long with these guys because they're so terrific. And I did want to, however, say that, here they are. I don't have the actual tracker, but they are now here on the route. They've left Cape Town, of course, going on leg 3 over around to Itajaí. I love this. Pronounce that town in Brazil where you and your late husband, Julia.
Yep.
They're right here south of Cape Lewin, which is the southernmost point, I think. I don't know if that's true or not, but Cape Lewin is where the Indian Ocean meets the Southern Ocean. And I've been down to Cape Lewin, and so I'll always remember that when we were doing the Cup in Fremantle, 85, 6, and 7. That's where they are. They're headed toward Itajaí. On leg 3, they have still one boat in Cape Town, as you probably know. We've been telling you about that, and that's this Guyot Environment, right, is the name of that. And it looks like, yeah, surely 11th Hour will either have to take a port stop or retire from the event. Yeah, they got real problems, and I haven't been following it closely in the last 3, 4, 5 hours, but some of you may. So we told you on Tuesday's show that they had gone back safely, gotten back to Cape Town after they had their DLAM problems, and that they were going to make repairs in Cape Town and rejoin the race in Brazil. We told you that they are, in fact, going to sail across the ocean, across the Atlantic, and go over to Brazil. Successful repairs, they say today in a press release. While the ocean race has 4 IMOCAs now sprinting, well, maybe, across the Indian Ocean towards Cape Horn, the repair of Guyot Environment Team Europe has gone faster than expected. I hope so, because I worry these guys. Yeah. We all did. They get out in the middle of the ocean. So here's a couple photos of them doing that work and redoing the hull where the DLAM was.
Yeah.
Since arriving back to Cape Town on the 4th of March to repair a delaminated area on the port side of the hull, non-destructive testing revealed no additional damage. So the work at the improvised construction site in Cape Town progressed quickly for the yacht. The departure is now planned on March 16th, so 6 days from now, which will have the team there in Itajaí for the start of the 4th leg of the ocean race on April 23rd. So they have more than a month to get there, get sorted out, a month and a week. The repair, quote unquote, the repair has progressed very well, reported skipper Benjamin Dutroux. The team did a very good, fast, and strong job. Well, I hope so.
Me too.
The lamination work was completed this morning, the 10th. Today, now a few more bumps will be filled and the laminated area will be in good shape, and then the painters can start work. I hope so. We just don't want to have them get out in the Atlantic and have another problem and never make it to Itajaí. Okay, here is the latest race report from today. The last 2 days, 11th Hour have been struggling with a pair of damaged, rudders. Race leader Team Wholesome PRB is sailing into lighter winds as the chasing pack hold on to stronger winds and have caught up.
The end of the Indian Ocean, probably in Cap Lewin 2 days. We are reaching just ahead of front, with the Malaysia in 11 hours just behind us, and all team 100 miles in front of us.
All meal have.
It depends on our speed, but if we are faster, we are more in the sunny condition, and if we are slower, the rain reaches, so it's more gray. So yes, it's since a few days we are on this tack, and probably a few more days.
The American team is now back up to full speed and making strong progress in the chasing pack. Well, not so sure about that. Shot from on board 11th Hour Racing. The Team Wholesome PRB's lead has dropped to nearly 100. Yeah, it was 100 plus nautical miles. It was, 500, 600 for a while. Very few tactical options at the moment. Be patient, go fast, and be ready when things open up again. Will Harris.
Catching up. Slowly working our way back towards the top. That's what we're going to do. You've got to pick away at it. Every mile counts.
Expect the fleet to head south at the next ice exclusion zone corner. Yeah, Wholesome PRB's been down there on the ice exclusion zone. That's the race report for today from the ocean race around the world since 1973. There is a screen grab of the tracker from about 3 hours ago now. Wholesome PRB with a 116-mile lead. It showed then Biotherm over Biotherm in second. 11th Hour Racing 130 miles back of the leader In third, at least they were. I don't know any of you were watching that. Team Alicia in a close fourth. So those three boats, the chasers, so-called chasing pack of three, we'll see what happens to the next weather system, if they can close the gap further, or whether it will, now that it's accordioned together, or concertinaed, as you in Europe might call it, if it's going to concertina back apart or accordion back apart. Pretty well wrapping it up now for show 559. I have a corrector Crutonic, Julia.
Yes.
And it's a very simple question.
What's it?
And am I correct or Crutonic doing the show alone? Am I better with you here? I'll ask everybody watching, or is it better? Am I better alone or better with you here? It's a very simple question. Is it correct or Crutonic when I'm alone? It's a simple answer. What do you think, Julia? Tell us what you think.
No one can replace you.
Well, that's not true.
But the banter is easier on everybody than one person trying to.
It is. It gives me a break to be able to talk to you, and then you correct me if I say something Crutonic, which I do increasingly, especially when I only had a couple 3 hours sleep last night. Crutonic when you were alone, Gruber's saying. Yes, absolutely. Totally Crutonic without Julia. Jonathan Frank. It absolutely is the case. It's much better to have you here. Thank you very much. I think Jody would agree that I am Crutonic without you. I found that when viewing the tracker, the best view is to turn the wing. Yeah, I agree, Clark. I like to turn. You are adrift alone, Pedro. Oh, God, they're harsh. How could you ask that? Well, it's true. It's just so much nice to have Julia back. Thank you. Are you feeling, are you still, what's your long COVID, if any? Are you just fatigued?
Yeah.
No sore throat, nothing else. And you haven't for the last, what was the worst symptom you had through that whole exercise? Stuffy head?
Yeah.
You were pretty stuffy when I'd come up and bring you something to eat.
And just no energy
just
at
fatigue.
all.
But are you feeling more energetic now?
I am.
Well, the Fozy probably have energized you.
They have.
Julia adds the glamour as an expert finger waver.
Wagger.
Wagger, indeed. Show is better with Julia. Okay. That gets us to the...
How's anybody going to see it other than that?
Well, of course they're not. But, it was... You never ask questions. I'm not a lawyer like Katie is, but you never ask questions to which you don't know the answer. Now, see, that's how you'd say it coming from Stanford.
Yes, of course. Yes.
We'd end this. Coming from Michigan, I'd end the sentence with a preposition.
Yes.
A dangling participle. Well, that's what's between your legs. Speaking of the last leg here, now you can shake your finger at me. I'm goofy. We're 2 hours and 3 minutes in the last leg, this nice painting. And we've got a couple, thanks again to the Fozy. And there, it's just nice. This one from Greg Phillips. And there's a race down there where and probably several other races around that get dressed up. And I don't know what race. Greg sent this, didn't tell me what race it was from. Or if he did, I missed it. Sailing makes me feel free. I thought that was cool.
Yeah.
Simple, clean. Alan Long is saying, I'm back thinking without the scarves, we'd be so confused. That's true, too. Thanks, Greg. Thank you for that. And then finally, since we are the famously, I don't know if it's good, but the famous drinking show of the Sailing Habit, oh, please, not every wine has hints of bamboo. You know who that came from?
No.
Stingray.
Ah.
He probably smokes a little bamboo during the show, don't you, Stingray? Huh? You got a little bamboo going on up there right now? I don't know about that. Nice photo from Dave Reed there. I like this one. We'll change them up again. Maybe for the show next Tuesday, our 600th show, we'll change them up. Julia, you like to say.
Yes, this is a particularly good show to watch for the
Aren't they fabulous?
Comments.
Well, like, follow, and share, of course, as Clark has said, as John Emmett has said at the top of the show. And please, Do comment if you're watching in replay, and also please support us via Patreon. Become a patron, patreon.com/join/Sailing Illustrated. I mean, we have to buy coffee for this show. I have to make coffee. And, you know, that coffee costs $4 or $5 just to get and put it in the machine. And now the machine's getting worn out. We have to get a new coffee machine. The mugs, look at, because we're so short of money, the mugs are out of style, you know. There's we don't call it TFE Live anymore.
Yes.
So much to do, so little time. Thank you, everybody who gave us video, images, and audio for today's show. Last look at the comments. Clark Chapin, Baby Yacht Club will honor Ted Everingham on his winning the Harmon Hawkins Award. I've been in touch with Ted on Saturday, the 25th of March. It is well deserved. Please give, if you're there, Clark, give Ted a big hug for me. Longtime friend, Flying Scot sailor, and so on, past Commodore of I think every club in Detroit and the Detroit River Yachting Association. Gordon Smith, thank you for your kind comment. Escape from Alcatraz. That was clever, fog machine about that boat where everybody's in jail clothes. At least coffee is cheaper than eggs, Peter Taylor is saying.
Wow, yeah.
A splendid time well spent with great friends, as always. Jonathan, Frank, and all of you. What a fabulous show. Thank you. So nice to have Julia back on air and feeling better. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody. That's Morris Stevens up in Canada.
Oh, good.
Right?
Yes.
Julia, any final thoughts before we bid adieu to this show?
No, I just loved our two guests today.
They are not coming on Friday. That slide I didn't delete. I should have deleted that. That was the promo slide from Tuesday's show.
Yeah.
I got to talk to the graphics department.
Yeah, quick.
We are going on daylight savings time, as I mentioned at the top of the show. We're going on this Sunday here in the U.S. Sadly, I just wish we'd stop doing this. You know, lock the clock, leave it one way or the other. I don't care. You all have to figure out in your local time zones as you go on and off summertime. But we will now be an hour earlier for all of you, right? It's an hour earlier. Yeah, there are the times until you do your changey switcheroos. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for Julia. Thank you for coming on the show, Julia, and being back with us. We hope you have a great rest of your weekend. If you do go sailing, sail fast, sail safe, and, of course, have fun. See you Tuesday.
For our 600.
For our 600.